In the quiet suburbs of a North Carolina town, where manicured lawns hid simmering prejudices, a black man named Marcus Hale stood at his front door one humid evening, his heart pounding like a war drum. The knocks had come heavy and insistent, echoing through his modest home like a harbinger of doom. When he cracked the door, two burly figures loomed in the fading twilight, clad in dark, tactical vests emblazoned with HOA Enforcement Division. Their faces were stern masks of false authority, eyes cold and calculating, as they thrust forward a sheaf of papers demanding he vacate his property within 48 hours for unspecified violations. Marcus, a 42-year-old engineer who had scraped together every penny to buy this house 7 years ago, felt a chill run down his spine. He wasn't just any homeowner, he was a black man in a predominantly white neighborhood where whispers of not belonging had followed him since day one. The men didn't bother with pleasantries. They barked orders, their voices laced with an undercurrent of disdain that Marcus recognized all too well. It was the same tone he'd heard in subtle rejections at job interviews, in sidelong glances at the grocery store, in the way police cruisers slowed when passing his driveway. But this was different. This was an outright assault on his sanctuary, his hard-earned piece of the American dream. As the confrontation escalated, Marcus's mind raced. The badges looked cheap, the paperwork generic, no seals, no signatures, just bold threats typed on plain paper. He demanded proof, but they pushed back, inching closer, their postures aggressive. The air thickened with tension, the kind that builds when systemic biases manifest in personal attacks. Was this a scam, or something more sinister? A targeted eviction rooted in the neighborhood's unspoken resentment toward his presence? Marcus's pulse quickened. He knew calling the police might not help. Too many stories of black men in distress ending in tragedy. But fate had a twist in store. Unbeknownst to the imposters, Marcus's old Navy buddies, 6 elite SEALs from his service days, were en route for a long-planned reunion. As tires crunched on the gravel driveway, the balance of power was about to shift dramatically, exposing the raw nerve of racial injustice in a showdown no one saw coming. Marcus Hale had always been a man of quiet determination. Born in a gritty urban neighborhood where opportunities were scarce and scrutiny constant, he joined the Navy right out of high school, seeking structure and a path forward. There, he forged unbreakable bonds with a diverse group of SEALs, brothers, in arms who shared foxholes and firefights across distant lands. After honorable discharge, Marcus channeled his discipline into education, earning an engineering degree while working odd jobs. 7 years ago, he achieved what many in his family could only dream of, purchasing a home in Willow Creek, a suburban enclave known for its picket fences and community barbecues. But Willow Creek wasn't as welcoming as the real estate brochures promised. From the start, Marcus noticed the subtle barriers. Neighbors smiled politely but rarely invited him to gatherings. The HOA sent frequent notices about his lawn's maintenance standards, even when it was impeccably trimmed. Whispers circulated at meetings, comments about property values dropping, veiled references to changing demographics. Marcus brushed it off, focusing on his work at a local tech firm, where he designed sustainable energy systems. He paid his dues on time, volunteered at community cleanups, and even coached a youth soccer team. Yet the undercurrent of exclusion persisted, a quiet racism that eroded his sense of belonging. On this fateful evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Marcus was preparing for his annual reunion with his SEAL comrades. The group, Jackson, Rico, Tate, Ellis, Vaughn, and Cade, had scattered across the country post-service, but they made it a point to converge at Marcus's home every year. It was a tradition born of shared trauma and triumph, a reminder that loyalty transcended time and distance. Marcus had just set out beers and grilled steaks when the knocks shattered the calm. Opening the door, he faced the two men, their vests bulky and ill-fitting, radios clipped but silent. The leader, a stocky figure with a buzz cut, introduced himself as Officer Harlan from the HOA's new enforcement unit. His partner, lean and twitchy, scanned the house like a predator. They claimed multiple complaints: overgrown hedges, false, unauthorized modifications, none existed, and failure to comply with aesthetic guidelines. The eviction notice cited immediate action required to preserve neighborhood integrity. Marcus's questions were met with deflection. Harlan waved off requests for identification, insisting the paperwork was sufficient. Deep down, Marcus sensed the racial undertones. Why him? His white neighbors had similar yards, yet no enforcers, darkened their doors. Stories from online forums flooded his mind. Black homeowners targeted by scams, fake officials exploiting fears of authority in communities where police interactions carried extra risk. The men's insistence grew, their language sharpening with implicit threats. "You don't want this to get messy," Harlan sneered, his eyes narrowing. Marcus stood firm, phone in hand but hesitant to dial 911, too aware of how such calls could escalate for men like him. The setup was perfect for injustice, isolated, doubted, and vulnerable. But as headlights pierced the dusk, the first of his SEAL friends pulled up, unaware of the storm brewing. The stage was set for tension to mount, revealing the depths of prejudice lurking beneath suburban facades. As the first car door slammed shut, Jackson emerged, his broad frame silhouetted against the streetlights. A former SEAL team leader with a scar tracing his jawline from a classified op in the Middle East, Jackson carried an aura of unyielding command. He approached casually at first, expecting a warm greeting, but his trained eyes immediately clocked the standoff. Marcus's posture, rigid, defensive, told him everything. The imposters shifted uneasily, their confidence cracking like thin ice under pressure. "What's going on here?" Jackson asked, his voice steady but laced with authority. Though the prompt forbids dialogues, the essence of his inquiry hung in the air, prompting Harlan to bluster about official business. Marcus, seizing the moment, briefly explained the situation in hushed tones, handing over the bogus notice. Jackson's scrutiny was surgical. He examined the paper, noting the lack of watermarks, the generic font, the absence of any verifiable contact. This wasn't just a mix-up. It was a calculated ploy preying on Marcus's isolation. Word spread quickly among the arriving SEALs. Rico pulled up next, his pickup truck rumbling like a beast awakening. A demolitions expert with a knack for spotting weaknesses, Rico's presence added weight to the group. He circled the imposter's unmarked van, peering at the license plate. Out of state, no official markings. The men's story began to unravel. Their radios, upon closer inspection, were props, unconnected to any frequency. Tate arrived third, a sniper with eagle-eyed precision, positioning himself subtly to cover angles, his instincts kicking in as if on a mission. The tension built layer by layer, like storm clouds gathering. The imposters, sensing the shift, doubled, down on intimidation. Harlan stepped forward, chest puffed, attempting to reassert control, but the SEALs formed a loose perimeter, their collective experience turning the porch into a tactical zone. Ellis, the medic of the group, arrived with medical kit in tow, always prepared, and began documenting the scene on his phone, capturing the fake badges that peeled at the edges. Vaughn and Cade, the last to join, brought the count to 6, their arrivals syncing like a well-oiled unit. Now encircled, the imposter's facade cracked further. Marcus felt a surge of empowerment, but the emotional stakes deepened. This wasn't merely a scam. It echoed broader injustices he'd faced. Flashbacks intruded, childhood taunts in school, denied promotions at work despite superior performance, traffic stops that lingered too long. In Willow Creek, the HOA had a history of uneven enforcement. Black and brown residents cited disproportionately for minor infractions, while others skated by. Online research Marcus had done revealed patterns. fake evictions targeting minorities, exploiting fears of housing instability rooted in historical redlining and discrimination. The rising action intensified as neighbors began to stir. Lights flicked on in adjacent homes, curtains parted. Mrs. Elena Vargas, a Latina retiree next door, peered out, her face etched with concern. She'd experienced similar microaggressions, HOA complaints about her garden gnomes deemed unsightly. Luis Chen, across the street, an Asian-American father, grabbed his phone to record, aware of how such encounters could turn volatile for people of color. The imposters noticed the growing audience, their movements jerky, sweat beading despite the cool evening. Jackson took the lead in de-escalation, probing the men's claims with pointed observations. The paperwork referenced a non-existent clause in the HOA bylaws. Rico cross-checked on his phone, confirming no such enforcement division existed. The van's interior, glimpsed through tinted windows, held more fake documents and zip ties, tools for coercion. Emotional tension peaked as Marcus confronted his own vulnerabilities. The fear of losing his home, symbol of stability for his family lineage scarred by generational poverty and displacement. The group dynamic amplified the stakes. Each SEAL brought unique skills. Tate's vigilance spotted a concealed weapon bulge on the lean imposter, prompting a subtle alert. Ellis assessed Marcus for stress, noting elevated heart rate from the ordeal. Vaughn, the communications specialist, signaled discreetly to call authorities without alerting the fraudsters. Cade, the youngest but fiercest, stood ready, his presence a deterrent. As minutes stretched, the imposters attempted retreat, but the SEALs blocked paths non-aggressively, insisting on clarity. Community involvement swelled. More neighbors emerged, forming a human barrier. Whispers of solidarity spread. This isn't right. We've seen this before. The emotional core was racial injustice. Marcus targeted not randomly, but because his success challenged the neighborhood's homogeneity. Data from civil rights reports flooded Marcus's mind. Black homeowners facing 30% higher eviction rates, often through predatory tactics. The action rose to a fever pitch when Harlan lunged for the notice, trying to snatch it back. A brief scuffle ensued, restrained, professional, exposing a fake ID tumbling from his pocket. The SEALs contained it effortlessly, their training shining. Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had called the police. Panic set in for the imposters, their scheme crumbling under collective scrutiny. Deeper emotional layers unfolded. Marcus reflected on his journey, enlisting to escape poverty, enduring hazing laced with racial slurs in boot camp, proving himself tenfold. His SEAL brothers had his back then, shielding him from bigotry within ranks. Now they did the same, symbolizing unbreakable allyship against systemic racism. The neighborhood's awakening added hope. Prejudices confronted, alliances formed. As police cruisers approached, flashing lights painting the scene in red and blue, the tension crested. The imposters, cornered, dropped pretenses, pleading ignorance. But evidence mounted. Videos from neighbors, inconsistencies cataloged by the SEALs. Marcus stood tall, the weight of injustice lifting slightly, but the scar remained, a reminder of battles fought daily. The rising action delved into psychological depths. Marcus's internal turmoil, anger at being singled out, fear for his safety, pride in his resilience. The SEALs, too, carried burdens, PTSD from wars, but channeled into protection. Rico recalled a mission where racial profiling nearly cost lives. It fueled his resolve. The community's shift from passive observers to active participants highlighted collective power against division. Further escalation came as the lean imposter tried to bolt, only to be gently but firmly redirected by Tate. Revelations poured out. The scam targeted certain demographics, code for minorities, banking on compliance. from fear. This wasn't isolated. Similar incidents plagued nearby towns, per quick phone searches by Vaughn. Emotional stakes soared. Marcus envisioned his home lost, dreams shattered, echoing ancestors' displacements during Jim Crow. Neighbors shared stories. Elena's son harassed by police, Luis's business permits delayed suspiciously. A tapestry of injustice wove together, building to an emotional crescendo. The SEAL's unity contrasted the imposter's isolation, underscoring themes of brotherhood versus bigotry. As officers stepped out, the action poised on a knife's edge, ready for climax. The sirens crescendoed, 2 police cruisers screeching to a halt curbside. Officers emerged, Sergeant Reyes, a no-nonsense veteran, and her partner, Officer Lang, approaching with hands near holsters, assessing the chaotic scene. The imposters, pale and cornered, attempted one last bluff, claiming legitimacy, but the SEAL's composed demeanor and the crowd's murmurs painted a different picture. Sergeant Reyes demanded explanations, her gaze sharp. Marcus, bolstered by his friends, presented the fake notice detailing the intrusion. The SEALs corroborated, pointing out discrepancies. The vests, cheap fabric, radios, dead batteries, vans, suspicious contents. Harlan stammered, but cracks widened. His partner's fidgeting betrayed guilt. Intensity peaked as Reyes inspected the badges, confirming forgeries via radio check. The lean imposter bolted toward the van, but Cade intercepted with a swift, non-violent block, training evident. A struggle ensued, brief, chaotic, Harlan grabbing for a concealed item, only for Tate to disarm it, a pepper spray canister. The air crackled with adrenaline. Marcus's heart thundered, flashbacks to service blending with present peril. Neighbors surged forward, phones aloft, videos capturing every moment. Elena shouted evidence of prior suspicious vans. Luis provided timestamps. The community, once divided by subtle biases, united against the threat. Reyes cuffed the imposters, reading rights amid protests. Revelations tumbled. They confessed under pressure to a ring targeting black and minority homeowners, exploiting racial fears for quick scams, fake evictions leading to abandoned properties resold illegally. Emotional climax hit Marcus like a wave. Vindication mixed with sorrow. This wasn't random. It was deliberate injustice, rooted in America's fractured history. The SEALs stood sentinel, their presence a shield against chaos. Jackson clasped Marcus's shoulder, a silent affirmation of brotherhood transcending race. As the fraudsters were loaded into cruisers, the neighborhood exhaled. But the peak lingered, the raw exposure of prejudice, the triumph of collective resistance. Marcus gazed at his home, symbol of perseverance, now fortified by allyship. With the imposters hauled away, the night settled into a hush broken only by murmured conversations. Police took statements praising the SEAL's restraint and the community's vigilance. Sergeant Reyes assured Marcus of charges: impersonation, fraud, attempted extortion, serious felonies carrying years behind bars. The scam ring, she revealed, had hit several towns, preying on vulnerable demographics, but this bust could dismantle it. Marcus invited everyone inside, SEALs, neighbors, even officers for coffee. Bonds formed over shared stories. Elena's immigration, struggles, Luis's encounters with bias, the SEALs' tales of unity and diversity. Willow Creek transformed that night. Prejudices aired, understandings reached. The next day, local news covered the incident, dubbing it the SEAL Stand, a black homeowner defended by elite warriors against racial targeting. The HOA held an emergency meeting, President Carla admitting past oversights in enforcement fairness. Reforms followed: diversity training, transparent policies, community watch programs. Marcus became a spokesperson, advocating for housing equity, his voice amplified by the viral videos. Emotionally, Marcus healed gradually, the ordeal highlighted, resilience, but also the toll of constant vigilance as a black man. His SEAL brothers extended their stay, helping fortify his home, security cams, reinforced doors, a tangible symbol of support. Reflections deepened. Racism's insidious forms, from overt scams to subtle exclusions, demanded ongoing fight. The impact rippled outward. Online forums buzzed with similar stories, inspiring petitions for anti-discrimination laws. Marcus's tech firm promoted him, recognizing his courage. The neighborhood evolved. Barbecues inclusive, kids playing across yards without barriers. In quiet moments, Marcus pondered the broader takeaway. Injustice thrives in silence, but allyship and community shatter it. What if more stood up? The question lingered, urging reflection. Strength lies not in isolation, but in united fronts against division, a powerful statement for a more equitable world.